Welcome to TJsRC, everybody. Thanks for being here. Today we got the Gen 8 Axe Edition Scout 2 here on the bench, and we're going to be installing this nice plug-and-play LED light kit from Redcat Racing. This kit is specifically for the Gen 8, and we're going to see just how easy it is to get this kit installed so that we can start lighting up our path out on the trail. So if that sounds like fun, then follow along as we head over to the bench. First, let's take a look at what we're going to need for this project. You're going to need the light kit. You're also going to need this bag of clips and screws that came with your Gen 8 when you got it. It's all of the retaining clips that you're going to need for holding the LEDs in place on the body and chassis. So that's important. Make sure you've got those. Next, let's get in the box here and see what we've got. We got a little... Well, this will come in handy as we are getting the wires mapped out from all of the different light buckets to the control box. This is the control box that comes with it, and it does say on the box that it is waterproof, so you shouldn't have to worry about where you place this. Looks like these are your jumpers for changing the settings. In the instruction manual, it describes what each of these jumpers does. Jumper K4 reverses the brake signal, and jumper K3 reverses steering signal. The Gen 8 body doesn't actually have any light buckets for the turn signals. If you really wanted that feature, this control module will do that, and so this kit doesn't come with those turn signal lights. But it does have working brake lights as an option, which is the K2 jumper right here. You can have the brake light fully illuminated when braking. Maybe we'll have to play around with that. These are your Y connectors for splicing the control lines in place for the box. One for each of the two main channels. There is a bag with some stick-on holders for holding the wires in place on the inside of the body. Some tiny zip ties. And then here are all of the wires for all the lights. They're all self-contained into two separate pieces. This big one here, the 10 bulbs on it, is going to be for the body itself. And then this other piece here, the smaller one, with just 6 bulbs on it, is for the chassis. So let's start by installing these on the chassis, and then we'll move to finishing up with the body. So this smaller one with the 6 bulbs is the part that's going to go on the chassis. And the strand with just the 2 bulbs is the strand that goes to the rear. And then the strand with the 4 bulbs is the strand that goes to the front. To make this easier to install, what I'm going to do is remove the bumpers, install the lights into the bumpers, and then put the bumpers back. There are 2 screws to get the bumper out, so pay attention to which hole they are mounted in, so that you can get the bumper back in exactly the right spot. Keep in mind, as you're installing these, you need to get the wires routed first, then install the lights into each bucket. Because if we just install these into each bumper and then put the bumpers back, we're not going to be able to get the wires tucked where they need to go. We're going to want to have our control box over here, so we're going to start by routing this underneath here towards the back, and then the wires that are going to go towards the front end. Now that we got the wires run to the front and back, we can come back over, and this is where those nifty clips are going to come in. We'll need 1 clip and 1 screw for each one. There we go. I think I was just using the wrong screw. There we go, we got the rear ones installed. I did have the wrong screw at the beginning there. Once we get everything reinstalled, we can go back with some zip ties and kind of get everything tucked away neatly. The rear bumper lights are installed and the bumpers back mounted onto the chassis. Now we'll move on to the lights up here. Moving to the front, we're going to need 4 clips and 4 screws again to hold all of those in place. Once you've repeated that step all 4 times, front bumper is ready to be reinstalled. I'm gonna try to keep the wires above the bumper mount just to try to minimize snagging on things. Then go ahead and reinstall the front bumper mount screws. I'm gonna go ahead and kind of bend these wires out of the way a little bit. That's kind of how they'll sit, I think. The same with the back. Just gonna get these will probably run along here. I think maybe I'll have those tuck like that. I think we'll go ahead and mount the control box now. That's gonna sit right over here, and they give you some double-sided tape for that. So this wire is gonna connect right into its little spot right there. Now we're gonna set this aside, and we're gonna move on to installing the lights into the light buckets on the body itself. We're gonna start back here with the rear light buckets. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the screws that hold the light buckets in, because then it will be easier to attach the clips that hold the LEDs in, and then we'll reinstall the light buckets once we get all of the lights in them. You're gonna have to take and sort these. By looking at the wire map here, we can determine that this one here is the only one that goes to the front of the body. These three are for the rear light buckets. This line here is for the top of the rear light bucket. This one is for the bottom of the rear light bucket, and this is for the middle of the light rear bucket. And we're going to want to remember to have these run on this far side, because this is where the control block is going to be mounted. It's going to sit right here. So these are going to need to sit like so that we can connect and disconnect when we want to use the lights. Removing screws to loosen up the rear light buckets. Alright, so we determined that this is for the top. And again, we need our clips and our screws. Alright, we got the top two in. Now, we're going to move to, you know what, I'm just going to take this light bucket out the rest of the way. And we'll go ahead and reinstall the light bucket in each corner. Alright, so we've got the rear light buckets completely finished. Now we'll move to the front light buckets. Now before we go ahead and do the front, what you're going to want to do is remove all of the screws that hold the front two fender flares to this cross member and internal wheel well here. You're going to want to remove all of these so that this piece can come out, just because trying to get to the light buckets is going to be a little bit difficult with this piece in place. You might be able to do it. I find that it's just a little bit easier if you remove all of these pieces. Then this cross member comes right out. This way it's much easier to get access to these light buckets. We'll take our first clip. Clip number 2. And our last clip. There, that is the last light bucket. Now, it's simply a matter of getting this piece put back in place where it belongs. Once we got the cross brace inner fenders put back together, we're going to just set the truck on its side here so that we can put a couple of these clips in place to get this wiring to stay put along the edge here, just so that it's not flopping around any more than it needs to. Alright, so that's the last clip. We've got the rest of the wires all tidied up neatly in their respective areas. Now we just need to get these splitters in line between these wires and the receiver to power the control box. This one is for the steering servo, and this one is for the speed control. Almost connected them backwards there. And these are labeled channel 1 and 2. So after testing to make sure it worked, I went ahead and zip tied all the wires neatly out of the way, or at least as neatly as I'm going to get it for now. So let's get the body on and connect everything up and show you what it looks like. And before you set the body in place, clips down in place. Interesting how in the camera it kind of looks like the lights flicker. My eyes don't see them flicker as I look at them. Looks pretty good. Exceptionally bright. Spin it around. As you can see, with the throttle in neutral position, the brake lights are on. And now as I give it a little bit of throttle, they'll go off. And when I let off the throttle, brake lights come back on. Now you can change that jumper in there so that these brake lights stay on all the time, just kind of dim, and then when you let off the throttle so that it goes to brake mode, they brighten up. But I've decided to try it this way for now, so that they're completely off until you let off the throttle, then the brake lights come on. And then the reverse lights come on when you hit reverse. I think that's gonna work pretty cool. I like the way that's set up. It would have been really awesome if the body had marker light buckets, but maybe down the road that's something we can add. It is nice that the control unit does come with the option to install that later on if you desire. Overall, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. It really wasn't that difficult. The worst part, I think, was having to remove the fender flares and the internal crossmember on the front to get the lights into those front light buckets. You might be able to get away with not having to do that, but I felt like it made the job much easier even though it took a little extra time. Let me know in the comments if you've got lights set up on your RC, and if you do have lights on them, do you actually drive them at night or in the dark? This is TJsRC. Thanks for watching.